Some MCU conspiracies sound completely ridiculous. The problem is, every one of these turned out to be true. HYDRA was secretly running S.H.I.E.L.D. Picture walking up to someone in 2014 and telling them that S.H.I.E.L.D., the world's biggest peacekeeping agency, the people who assembled the Avengers, had been a Nazi organization the whole time. You'd get laughed out of the room. HYDRA died in 1945. Everyone saw the Red Skull vanish and their war machine collapse. The official story was simple. S.H.I.E.L.D. are the good guys holding the line against every global threat. Except in The Winter Soldier, Steve Rogers finds a secret bunker under an old army base, boots up a decades-old computer, and comes face-to-face with the brain of Arnim Zola, the Nazi scientist he captured in 1945, still alive as a consciousness stored on 200,000 feet of databanks. And Zola gleefully explains the con. After the war, America recruited HYDRA scientists through Operation Paperclip, and those scientists quietly grew HYDRA back, in his words, like a beautiful parasite inside S.H.I.E.L.D. For 70 years, they'd been engineering crises and feeding off wars from the inside, and nobody ever noticed. And they weren't just hiding. Their endgame, Project Insight, was 3 flying gunships running an algorithm that scanned everyone's bank records, emails, phone calls, even their old SAT scores, to predict who might one day threaten HYDRA and then kill them before they could. The target list ran to around 20 million people, to be wiped out a few million at a time for crimes they hadn't committed yet. The good guys had built a computer to murder 20 million civilians on suspicion. The whole thing ends with S.H.I.E.L.D. dismantled, every one of its secrets dumped onto the internet, and the agency itself branded a terrorist organization. So the paranoid guy insisting the heroes were secretly the villains wasn't paranoid. He was just early. The Mandarin was completely fake. At least HYDRA was real. This next villain didn't even exist. Picture being terrified of a terrorist called the Mandarin. He's hijacking every TV signal in America, taking credit for bombings, personally threatening the president on live television. Now imagine saying out loud that he's not real, that he's just an actor reading lines. People would tell you to lie down and drink some water. But that's exactly what Iron Man 3 reveals. When Tony Stark kicks down the door of the Mandarin's mansion, he doesn't find a warlord. He finds Trevor Slattery, a washed-up, permanently high British stage actor, lounging by a pool, who has no idea any of the threats were ever real. The actual mastermind is Aldrich Killian, and the reason he invented the Mandarin was to cover something up. The problem was that Killian's extremist experiments were wildly unstable. Test subjects kept detonating without warning, so instead of admitting the failures, he blamed the destruction on the Mandarin and sold every explosion as another act of terrorism. There were 9 of them. The public only ever knew about 3. So the most wanted man on the planet was a marketing campaign built to hide a science experiment that kept blowing people up. And the best part lands years later in Shang-Chi, when we find out Killian didn't even come up with the name himself. He stole it from a real 1,000-year-old organization, the Ten Rings, and slapped it onto his fake boogeyman, never realizing the Mandarin is also a chicken dish. An entire country spent years terrified of an orange. HYDRA murdered Tony Stark's parents. That last one fooled a whole country. This one fooled a single man for 25 years, and it broke the Avengers clean in half. For Tony Stark's entire adult life, the official story was that his parents, Howard and Maria, died in a car accident on December 16, 1991. Case closed. Tragic, simple, over. Now imagine telling grieving Tony that no, his parents were assassinated, murdered by a brainwashed super soldier sent to steal serum out of their trunk, and that soldier is the best friend of his own teammate, Captain America. That doesn't sound like the truth. That sounds like a man who can't accept an accident. Then in Civil War, Zemo plays the tape. The 1991 security footage shows the Winter Soldier, Bucky Barnes, running the Starks car off the road, beating Howard to death and strangling Maria before smashing the camera to stage a crash. It was never an accident. It was a HYDRA hit for super soldier serum, and Howard's final words, the moment he recognizes his own killer, are Sergeant Barnes, because the two of them fought side by side in World War II. The gut punch is that Steve Rogers knew and never told him. Tony asks him point blank, "Did you know?" And Steve just says yes. And that one word does exactly what Zemo wanted, because Zemo's entire plan was never to beat the Avengers in a fight. It was to make them destroy each other from the inside. It works perfectly. The team shatters, Cap and Iron Man stop speaking, and it stays that way right up until Thanos shows up to a planet whose defenders aren't even on the same side anymore. The Kree lied to Carol Danvers. Those were all Earth problems. This one is cosmic, and the person getting lied to is the hero herself. Carol Danvers spends the first half of Captain Marvel completely certain she's a noble Kree warrior on an elite squad, hunting down the Skrulls, a race of evil shape-shifting terrorists, good guys versus monsters. She never once questions it, because why would she? It's the only story she's ever been told. Every part of that story is a lie. The Skrulls aren't terrorists, they're refugees being hunted to near extinction. The Kree, Carol's own side, are the ones doing the hunting. Carol isn't even Kree. She's a human Air Force pilot whose memories were wiped, whose powers were secretly capped by a Kree implant, and whose own mentor, Jan Rog, spent years gaslighting her into believing she was weak and needed him. When Talos, the Skrull she was trained to fear, actually shows her the evidence, the entire story flips inside out. Her powers came from an exploding engine built by a Kree scientist who defected to protect the refugees, and Carol had been fighting for the wrong side the whole time. So she rips off the leash, switches sides, dismantles her old squad, and hands the Skrulls a ship to go find a new home. And as a bonus, this is also the movie where we learn the most feared spy on Earth, Nick Fury, didn't lose his eye in some heroic last stand. A cat scratched it out. Technically an alien cat, but still a cat. The man built the entire Avengers initiative, and he got permanently maimed by something that coughs up hairballs. Skrulls secretly replaced powerful people. Here's the twist though. We met the Skrulls as the victims. Years later, some of them decided they were done being victims. And this next one is the single most stereotypical conspiracy theory in existence. Shape-shifting aliens have secretly replaced people in power, and anyone you trust could be one of them. That's the exact thing the guy on the street corner screams right before someone confiscates his sign. In the MCU, it's just true. It gets seated at the very end of Far From Home, when we find out the Nick Fury we watched for the whole movie was actually a Skrull named Talos wearing his face. Then Secret Invasion blows the door off. A radical faction of Skrulls, led by a guy named Gravik, who got sick of waiting for the homeworld Fury promised and never delivered, has spent years quietly impersonating high-ranking humans to take the planet for themselves. Government officials, military officers, a prime minister, the head of NATO, all swapped out for aliens while nobody noticed. The one that really stings is War Machine. Rhodey, Tony's best friend, gets revealed as a Skrull, and the real Rhodey is found locked in a pod, still wearing the hospital gown from his injury all the way back in Civil War. The show all but comes out and says the man standing next to the Avengers for years was a fake. The fallout is a full-blown global panic and a new law branding every alien on Earth an enemy combatant. So the next time somebody tells you an alien replaced a senator, just gently let them know they're only off by a shade of green. Wakanda lied to the entire world. And if aliens hiding as your co-workers is too much, try an entire country hiding in plain sight. To the whole world, Wakanda is one of the poorest nations on Earth. Farmers, shepherds, textiles, nothing worth a second glance. The UN files it under Third World and moves on. Imagine telling a room full of world leaders that one of the countries they barely think about is actually the most technologically advanced nation on the planet, powered by the rarest resource known to mankind, and hiding an entire futuristic city from the rest of the world. Nobody would believe you. They'd also be dead wrong. Wakanda spent centuries deliberately disguising itself as a poor nation, so the rest of the world would never come digging for its vibranium. The fields and simple villages are a projection. Behind the holographic shield sit flying ships, energy weapons, and technology decades ahead of anyone else alive. They worked out very early that the second the world knew what they were sitting on, they'd be invaded and never left alone, so they chose to play dead for generations and let everyone underestimate them. The mask finally comes off in Black Panther when T'Challa walks into the United Nations and tells the world the truth that Wakanda will no longer watch from the shadows. And here's the thing, they were right to be scared. The instant the secret is out, the world goes straight for the vibranium. Rival nations start trying to take it by force. Mercenaries raid Wakandan outposts, and a whole second hidden civilization comes crawling out of the ocean to blame Wakanda for dragging it into the light. The poorest country on Earth was the richest the entire time, and the moment it finally stopped lying, everyone showed up to take what it had.